Welcome to Question Everything. Today we're going to talk about the Constitution, more specifically the First Amendment, freedom of speech. To do this, we're going to have to put aside the right-left divide. After all, right and left are just two wings of the same corporate warhawk bird. Both parties now represent the big trans corporations, and both parties are now pro-war. Neither represent us, the people, and neither protect the Constitution. Free speech is under attack by both parties. Biden, with social media posts, he would take them down if it didn't agree with his point of view and his donors' point of view. Trump is now trying to deport college students for their speech. So both parties are violating our Constitution and our right to free speech, and it's up to us to act to protect it, because nobody else is gonna. You want to give your thoughts on free speech and why it's so important?
Kind of funny to me how both parties can claim to be hardcore constitutionalists if it fits into their narrative. But then when it doesn't, they kind of just toss it out the window or try to ascribe caveats to it. And we saw this in the recent presidential election. Trump, he wasn't in the dark about what he was going to do. He said it very clearly that he wasn't going to, I can't remember the exact words he used, but made it very clear to a college campus what he would not put up with there. And Tim Walz basically had said there's no guarantee to free speech, and Kamala Harris went as far as to say they all need to have the same rules and regulations no matter what.
Which is just ridiculous because, the Constitution is the law of the land. It's above all other law. And the First Amendment, freedom of speech, is the First Amendment for a reason. It's the most important one. All of our other rights depend on it. So it annoys me when I see politicians just dismissing it as if it's not important, or their cause or their point of view is more important,
Right, and you can't give the government the right to control people's social media. You can't just sign over the rights to them and then they get to decide what's true and what's not. We saw
That's
that
right.
during COVID. We see that you can see it in these other areas too, and then the excuse later if they're exposed is, well, we were going off the best information we had at that time, or say we had to work at the speed of science or something.
Yeah.
Throw something out there like that.
I mean, the Bill of Rights was put in. Bill of Rights was put in to restrict the government, not the people. During slavery, there was a Supreme Court Justice, Roger Taney, that presided over a case that had a preacher that was preaching for the abolishment of slavery. And although Taney was a slave owner, he still sided with the preacher based on free speech. So even though it went against his interests and his beliefs, he still sided for free speech, which, really... slavery would have never ended had people restricted the speech of people like this preacher.
It just kind of reminds me, I think one of the first constitutional rights to go was that the government was supposed to make money. It wasn't supposed to ever be outsourced to the Federal Reserve, for example. That was unconstitutional to happen, and you can look at the results we've had from that over the decades, and it's the same thing when it comes to free speech as well. Once it goes, as you see in all authoritarian governments, once that's gone and once people lose the right to have healthy debates, to think different from whatever narrative is being pushed, then you've basically lost everything, because at that point there's no limit to what the government can do, and there's never been a time where restricting speech has been of benefit.
Never. And it's a cornerstone of our civil rights movement. I mean, Martin Luther King depended on it to do what he did. He would have never been able to fight for the end of racial discrimination had his speech been silenced. Healthy debate is key for a free society.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I think alternative media is so important right now. That's why I think if we didn't have that, we could very well be on our way to not having free speech. I think it was Bill Clinton who signed the Telecommunications Act, I believe, that limited the news stations down to like 6 of them, and all big corporate news stations have donors, and that's who they are loyal to. They're not loyal to the people. They're loyal to the people who are cutting the check. And unfortunately, a lot of alternative media is that way too. There's a lot of them who have the contracts and whatever else that they have to be loyal to as well.
Definitely. I mean, right now, the donors seem to be the people that are getting catered to, certainly not the American people. So getting money out of politics would be a major step in the right direction to take our country back and to take our rights back.
It would, and there was never a reason for money to come flowing into it, really. And there should be a set salary. It's like, this is how much you make in this position per year, not like one year you might make just $100 million, but don't worry, if you're loyal, the next year you'll make
I think
500 million.
That's all with insider trading. I mean, really, I don't think they should be allowed to trade. I think while you're supposedly serving the people of America, it's not the time for you to serve yourself. You're supposed to be serving the people, and if that's not your objective, you shouldn't be there. If your objective is to make money, go work on Wall Street. If your objective is to help the American people, go be a politician. But that's unfortunately not who we're getting these days.
And we're even seeing it with, even X isn't a totally free speech platform. You've seen Elon Musk censor people on there, and unfortunately, the ones that are total free speech, anything goes, it seems to attract often the more like extreme personalities, so to speak, kind of an echo chamber from the ones that I've been on before. But I hope for the future that these absolute free speech platforms form a real following where people can present different ideas there, and it's not just echo chambers. But they don't make it easy. They don't make it easy for those ones to be as well known as the other ones. They kind of apply, I think, more stereotypes to people who join those that will prevent people from going on to them. So again, you wind up with kind of the more extreme personalities gravitating towards those, and there's not much variety of thought on there. So then you kind of go back to what's familiar, which I guess the best one of those you're probably going to get is X, but even then it's not a total free speech platform.
A healthy society depends on the free discussion of ideas, without it, how can you be free? If you're not even free to say what you think,
It's a very sacred thing, and I'd actually like to read this quote real quick that we have here. Now, this was spoken by John Kerry at, I believe, the World Economic Forum. It was definitely with members of it, because I can remember the background had the whole WEF behind him. So I think it was at their annual meeting. He'd said, "Our First Amendment stands as a major block to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. The dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing. It is part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today."
There's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities. Our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
And people go and self-select where they go for their news, for their information. And it never ceases to amaze me how the word democracy is thrown around in the same sentences as trying to restrict speech.
Yeah.
As in somehow like
It's double speak, it's
a threat to like free speech is somehow interfering with democracy.
History shows that it's never the good guys that censor speech.
Mm-hmm. Every single authoritarian regime, that's one of the...
It's the first thing they go for.
Yeah, it's always a staple. It is something like you mentioned, something that's being seen on both sides. It is something that is very dangerous to get into, because once the government decides what's violence, they can decide anything at that point. Anything is inciting violence, anything is dangerous, anything can lead to another potential, some tragedy in the past could re-happen again because of the speech.
Yeah. It's what they're doing is they're trying to take ownership of the truth and playing God, and nobody can do that. That should not be allowed. Certainly not in a free society, which America was set up to be and will continue to be as long as we guard our Constitution and protect our free speech.
So in 1917, there was a speech given to the Senate it was during the World War I, and it talked about how there can't be any limits on free speech at all. No matter the circumstances that are happening at that time, it has to be an absolute freedom. You can't put conditions on it. And some of the more recent examples we saw of that were during COVID, and when it's come to the wars that have broken out too. There's just certain things you seem to not be able to say without there being consequence, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with COVID, they came up with that science-free social distancing, which, suppressed our right of assembly, as well as right of free speech. They had one narrative that is all you could express, and they silenced doctors, unless they had, agreed with their narrative, they were going to get silenced.
Yeah, and that's what's so dangerous about having these big groups like WHO and other ones that kind of encompass such a broad range of medicine, because if that becomes too powerful, it becomes law of the land. There is no diverting away from whatever they decide they want to be true.
Yeah, again, it comes up to healthy debate, and they're trying to centralize and control a narrative, and destroy debate, and that's not science.
Yeah, agreed. And even when it comes to the wars too, you have to be able to present both sides. You have to be able to see things from as neutral as you can and as non-emotional as you can, so you can actually hear different perspectives and understand that things might not always be what they seem on the surface. And the loudest, most talked about narrative doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right one. All is not gone as of now. We still have significantly more freedoms than plenty of other places, so I would encourage getting involved perhaps on a local level while there's still time. I think we get too focused on the federal, we get too focused on the big changes happening in Washington that we neglect what's happening right here, right now. Form interest groups with people who are interested in the similar issues as you. See if there's any work to be done within two-party system groups in your area. Maybe you can collaborate on certain issues, and even if you disagree on others, form groups to write to senators to let it be known that this is important. Make phone calls to them too. The more they see this stuff coming up, the more they're going to be forced to have to talk about it eventually. The more people are going to catch on too and see that it matters to the constituents. They can't ignore mass numbers of people talking about something, right? Like they have to eventually respond if it catches on enough. I think The problem is they're dividing us on all this cultural stuff or whatever else they're throwing out there to discourage people from uniting.
I guess that's it for today. Remember to question everything.
I open up my phone on a Monday morning, staring at my screen. I'm tired and a little lonely. Mr. Muskie says some shit that left so angry. Twitter wars and Gaza, man, it's overwhelming. Maybe that's how life becomes when people less important than a profit line. No one cares about your dreams, just pay your tax on time. Keep scrolling, hold me near to you now. Gender, guns, religion, and abortion rights. You better pick a tribe and ain't the other side. Keep scrolling.
Did you see Taylor live?
Man-made virus, watch some millions die. Biggest profit of their lives. Here's inflation, that's your prize. This is Carmageddon. Turn on the news and eat their lies. Kim or Kanye, pick a side. Cancel culture, what a vibe. This is Carmageddon. Corporations swear they never lie. Politicians bribe for life. More than war, it's genocide. This is Carmageddon. Welcome to the chaos of the times. If you go left and I go right, pray we make it out alive. This is Carmageddon. It's Fashion Week, celebs lose ribs. Balenciaga house the kids. Just as Stray Keys losing beef. Kendrick killed him in his sleep. This track's about beating up your queen. While women dying doesn't cause a scene. While we're fed all these distractions, kids are killed from Israel's actions. I'ma speak my mind. Sick to death of all these crazy lies. A circus for humanity's decline. We just want a peaceful life. Give the people back their rights. And I still gotta beef, cause Fauci's laughing and we've been asleep. And who's a liar and it's running deep. Big pharma finna eat. They a devil, make 'em weak.